Hello, Assalamualaikum, and good day, everyone. Welcome back to our research and methodology course. In this session, I will be discussing on qualitative research methodology and also design. The learning outcome of this session as follows. Upon completion of the session, you should be able to discuss the need to conduct qualitative research. And then you should be able to discuss the requirements to becoming a qualitative researcher. And the third one is to be able to explain the differences of the 5 different types of inquiry in qualitative research. Okay, let's relate the content of this chapter with the previous chapters that we have discussed. In chapter 2 or topic number 2, we discuss about literature review, and we also discuss on the development of theoretical or conceptual framework. And after that, we talk about research paradigm. In research paradigm, we talk about 3 different paradigms, namely the interpretivism paradigm, positivism paradigm, and pragmatism paradigm. If you can recollect, the interpretivism paradigm is associated with the qualitative research methodology, whereas the positivism paradigm is associated with the quantitative research methodology. And the last one, the pragmatism paradigm, is connected or associated to the mixed methodology. Mixed methodology means combines both quantitative and qualitative research methodology. So in the last chapter also, we did mention that in the interpretivism paradigm, the research method that are normally used by researcher comprise of 5. One is called narrative. Number 2 is grounded theory. Number 3, phenomenology. Number 4 is the ethnography. And number 5 is case study. So these are the 5 different types of inquiry in qualitative research, which will be the main content of our discussion in this chapter. The content of this textbook is mainly extracted from the book entitled Qualitative Inquiry and Research Design, Choosing Among 5 Approaches. And the author of the textbook is John W. Creswell. The publisher is Sage Publication. All right. Let's talk about the premise of qualitative research. Now, the premise of qualitative research is that human beings act toward things on the basis of the meanings the things have for them. So every human beings perceive their environment like people, object, animals, trees, and the way they see all these objects or people, they have a certain meaning that they interpret deep in their heart or in their head. So this is the premise of qualitative research. You know, when people look at things and the way they perceive the things, the way they understand the things, the way they interpret the meanings of what they see or what they observe or what they are using or their own behavior. So this is what become the premise of the qualitative research. And the meaning of such things is derived from or arise out of the social interaction that one has with one's fellows. So we are living where there are so many people around us. So we interact with people, we interact with our colleagues, we interact with our supervisor, with our superior, with our teachers, with our lecturers. So as we interact with them, okay, our interaction, our transaction, our dealing, our encountering with them, okay, create a lot of meanings. Sometimes the meaning derive from the words that we speak out, okay, to other people, or from the gesture, from the uh, facial expression. So all these create meanings. Okay, so interaction in our social environment, our social interaction, whether face to face or nowadays we use social media. So that interaction create a lot of meanings that people, when they understand it, will give impact, okay, to their life as a person, or sometimes the impact to the community where that particular person live. Okay, so these meanings are handled in and modified through an interpretive process used by the person in dealing with the things he encounters. Okay, so this process is continuous. Okay, the process of creating meanings, certain things, certain object that we perceive and understand, we have certain meanings based on our perception and our understanding. But as we progress, time passes, the way we understand certain things, the way we perceive that particular things changes, and these changes also has impact to the way we create meaning upon that particular object. So as you can see, the process is continuous, is iterative, and keep on changing and changing day by day. Okay, so these are the premises of qualitative research. Okay, qualitative research deals with meaning. That's why when you create these qualitative research questions, you will notice that many researchers will use the word meanings as part of the words in the research questions or the research objective, because that meaning is to them very crucial and very important. If we can understand these meanings, okay, that has got a significant impact to the individual or the society at large. Okay, now qualitative research begins with assumption, a worldview. Okay, remember when we talk about paradigm has got three premises. The first one is epistemology. Epistemology has got to do with our assumption, what is considered valid knowledge, what is considered legitimate knowledge. Same goes to qualitative research here. There is an epistemology related or associated to it. What is our assumption? What is our worldview? Okay, and when we embark on a qualitative research, it is quite possible that we use certain theory as a lens, as a spectacle, as a way of seeing things. Okay, uh, well, of course, in our previous lecture, we say that uh, inductive research, qualitative research use inductive research, where from the observation you identify pattern and then come up with uh, theory at the end of the day. But when you do qualitative research also, even though at the end of the research you are expected to come up with a theory, it is still possible that you embark on a research, qualitative research, using a certain theory or a certain model. And as you progress, in the research, you collect data, you analyze, look at the patterns. Probably this theory will change. Okay, it will be expanded. Some parts of the theory will have to be removed. Okay, we start with the theory, and slowly, gradually, the theory will sort of um, develop in a way that you never expect. Okay, uh, so qualitative research, study of a research problems, inquiring into the meanings of individual or groups. So it has got to do with people. Okay, there's no way you will assess object, even though part of your data collection technique later will involve that. But in qualitative research, it's always about people, either individual or group. because you want to understand how do these people derive meaning on a certain phenomenon that they are in. Okay, now to study a problem, qualitative researcher use emerging qualitative approach to inquiry. Qualitative approach to inquiry here means the inductive approach or strategy. Okay, you will observe, collect data, and then you analyze the data slowly, gradually. From the data you identify pattern and come up with the theory. uh, and as I've mentioned, it is possible to start a qualitative research with a theory by itself. Okay, use that theory as a lens for you to look into the data that you want to find out. Okay, and then later on this theory will probably be changed at the end of the study. Collecting data in a natural setting sensitive to the people and places under study. Okay, very minimal interruption. So in a natural setting, normally you will observe, you will interview these people. Okay, this is the main tool of your data collection technique. And then analyze the data inductively, and slowly, gradually you will identify pattern from the analysis and come up with the final theory at the end of the day. The output of the qualitative research will be the final report or presentation, which entails the voices of the participants. Remember, you have to collect data using interview. So when you interview participants, participants will answer, respond, will give feedback. So the excerpts of the responses will be included in the report. Not everything, not the whole transcription, but selective responses by the participant will be included. Okay, the reflexivity of the researcher. You immerse in the research setting, you interview them, try to reduce bias as much as possible, because many a times the responses given to you will have to interpret. So in interpreting the responses, your experiences, your past knowledge, okay, plays a role, and to some extent it will create bias. So reflexivity is continuous. You have to ponder, contemplate, thinking about the responses given by the participant. A complex description and interruption of the problem, and an extension of the literature that signals a call for action. So you will also propose how the completed research can be further extended. Okay, and of course the findings will present you a complex description and interpretation of the problem. You have the problem statement, you have the research problem, so you want to find out the answers to this problem. So it's more like an understanding to this problem. So this understanding is provided or given in the form of your interpretation based on what is being given, based on the responses of the participant, coupled with other form of data that you have collected, like object or document review, document assessment, or evaluation. All right, in doing qualitative research, it has to be in a natural setting, not an artificial setting. So you will talk to the people directly, okay, in the workplace, in the natural setting, without having to interfere their day-to-day life. That means try to minimize, okay, interruption, interference. Okay, and you as a researcher, you are part of the research, and you become the key instrument for collecting data. If you do survey research, quantitative research, you can use online survey to collect data, and you don't even have to see or meet the respondent, right? You just email to them, and then they will respond to your questionnaire. You did not have the chance, and the respondent didn't have the opportunity to meet you in person. Okay, so the questionnaire is the tool for collecting data, but for qualitative research, you as the instrument for collecting data, you will involve or engage in a very deep conversation, talking with the participant. Of course, nowadays, with the availability of technology, whereby you can use the technology for collecting data, you can use a lot of the social networking sites, SNS, for collecting data and conduct qualitative research. Still possible, but a true qualitative research will require you as a researcher to be part of the instrument for collecting the data, interviewing them, because as a qualitative researcher, when you do interview, you will always revolves around the how and why questions. So the responses given by the participant, you take that responses and create another questions, and then again when the respondent responded, take that answers or reply and create another question. So you will dig further, or we call probing. Okay, you have to do a lot of probing, asking and asking. Okay, so that's why face-to-face meeting with the participant is the most effective way of collecting data for qualitative research. Now, interviewing is not the only source of gathering data. It has to be complemented with other sources of data, such as observation and document review, artifact review. Okay, so besides interviewing, perhaps you have to go to the workplace, go to the setting, and observe how people are doing things in the phenomenon that you want to study, and also collect other form of documents supporting, the phenomenon. Review this document, analyze the document. Sometimes you have to even do content analysis upon all the documents. Okay, uh, extract all this data and use all this data to complement each other, which is termed as triangulation sometimes. Okay, and in qualitative research, as I've mentioned, it involves inductive research strategy. So the pattern, the category, or the theme will emerge from the data. So it's like a bottom-up approach. Okay, you have the data collected, and then slowly, gradually, you will analyze and then develop the patterns, the themes, or categories. And in qualitative research, is about participants' meanings. So the focus will be on the meaning. So you want to learn the meaning that the participant hold about the problem or issue, not the meaning that the researchers bring to the research or writers from the literature. Okay, perhaps you may have some experience about the phenomenon, you have some knowledge based on your reading, so it's not that meaning that you have in your head. Okay, that is already biased, that should not influence you, okay, to some extent in asking the meaning, okay, from the participant. And then qualitative research has got to do with emerging design. The initial plan for research cannot be tightly prescribed. Okay, remember in my previous lecture, I show in a diagram format, okay, the difference between positivism and interpretivism. In terms of the design, positivism, the research design is fixed. For the interpretivism, the research design is flexible. Okay, so the research design should not be fixed when it comes to qualitative research. Okay, you have to, be flexible in terms of collecting the data. Perhaps you have to repeat data collection until you are fully satisfied that you have collected is considered sufficient, adequate, or in-depth, or you may want to use this if you want saturated. Okay, until and unless you reach this point, you have to again repeat the data collection. So that's why the research design should not be fixed. rather it has to be flexible. Okay, in qualitative research, it is possible to use theory as a lens to start your research with. You can pick any form of theory, and it is still possible also to create your own theory based on the literature, and you use that theory as a lens for you to progress in the study. Okay, so the theory is considered the initial conceptual framework. Initial, so it's not fixed. Just like the research design is not fixed, the theoretical or conceptual framework, whatever name that you want to call it, should not be fixed. It is meant to be flexible. It is meant to be expanded or changed as you manage to collect your data and analyze and obtain the findings that will change the initial conceptual framework that you develop. Otherwise, you can just pick any theory and use that theory as a lens for you to progress in the study. Interpretive inquiry, researchers make an interpretation of what they see, hear, and understand. So you will interview, you collect data. Using interview, you get responses. So these responses, okay, need to be analyzed and interpreted. Okay, so when you interpret this data, you have to minimize. Okay, bias is inevitable to some extent. There is a bias, of course, but you have to minimize bias. Okay, try to separate from your own experiences and knowledge into the data that you collect. So qualitative research try to provide a holistic account, a very holistic, complete, okay, description about the phenomena. So develop a complex picture of the problem or issue under study, which involves reporting multiple perspectives, identifying the many factors involved in the situation, and generally sketching the larger picture that emerges. Okay, remember when we talk about paradigm, okay, we talk about ontology, and then in ontology we mention about whether it is objective or subjective. So for qualitative research, it is subjective. So we look at reality exists, multiple realities exist. So we look at things, from a different angle, okay, and then we have to look at, in a different angle that different angles that are possible, because we want to provide a very holistic account of the situation or phenomena. Okay, now qualitative research is suitable when we need a complex, detailed understanding of the issue. We want to empower individuals to share their stories. We want people who are in the phenomenon, and you thought that that particular phenomenon has got significant impact, not only to you but to other people, many people. So we want to empower these people to share their stories. We want to hear their voices. Okay, we want to hear from them. Okay, and at the same time minimize the power relation that often exists between researcher and participant. Okay, this is normally in the quantitative approach, because you did not have any direct contact, face-to-face meeting between you and the respondent. So in qualitative research, we try to minimize the gap between you and the participant, minimize that, and we want to listen to them. Okay, we want to hear their voices, their experiences. We want to write in a literary, flexible style that conveys stories or theater, poems, without the restriction of formal academic structures of writing. Of course, there is still a certain style of writing for qualitative. We are not saying that it is totally free, when you write qualitative, very informal. When it comes to academics, still we have to follow, observe the academic requirements. There are still certain requirements that you have to fill, but we are comparing this against other methodology or paradigm. So qualitative research methodology is compared to quantitative. Quantitative, very structured, everything about numbers, then graph charts, but not in qualitative. Okay, our way of writing, our way of presenting is like, conveying stories, poems. uh, Qualitative research is suitable to follow up quantitative research and help explain the mechanism or linkages in causal theories or models. Okay, I've seen this a couple of times, and I had personal experience also examining thesis as an external examiner. A researcher who had adopt a qualitative approach after doing quantitative approach, meaning to say he did a quantitative research using survey and then followed by a qualitative research because he wanted to find out only why some of the hypotheses were rejected. Okay, to develop theories when partial or inadequate theories exist for certain population and samples where existing theories do not adequately capture the complexity of the problem. Like now we all are facing with this COVID-19. This is considered unprecedented, so we do not have much theory that can actually provide us with some explanation on the situation. So if you embark on a study, how people deal with this COVID-19, what are their experience, coping, for those who are being inflicted with these sicknesses, okay, then uh, your research will develop new theory, okay, because we do not have much information about that. So qualitative research is also used when quantitative measures and statistical analysis simply do not fit the problem. For example, explaining the interaction among people. Sometimes this context is not suitable for you to do quantitative research. Example, if you want to study aborigines, if you want to study indigenous people, living in the forest, in the woods, okay, some of them are illiterate sometimes. I'm not saying all. Nowadays some of them are already attending schools, okay, even universities, okay. Few of them, from my personal experience visiting these places, they did not send their children to school, so they are quite uh, left out, in terms of their literacy levels, quite low. So for you to distribute questionnaire and expect them to respond to your questionnaire, probably not very suitable. So the best is to go and meet them, talk to them, analyze their responses. So apparently qualitative research is very suitable. Okay. All right, the requirements for doing qualitative research. If you are willing to commit yourself uh, in terms of time, effort, energy, long hours in the field, then you are qualified to become a qualitative researcher. So qualitative researcher will have to spend a long time in the field, talking, observing the phenomenon, and then qualitative researcher will engage in a complex, time consuming of data analysis. Okay, unlike quantitative research, you collect data cross sectional. After you have uh, collected sufficient responses, you can analyze the data right away using statistical analysis tool. Okay, but for qualitative is different. You interview. After completing the interview, you analyze the data, and then interview again, analyze again, so iteratively. So you have to have extra patience in doing qualitative research, and you must be competent in your writing. You must be good in writing. Your vocabulary must be rich enough, to use the appropriate words and sentences to present stories, okay, and then to support, to substantiate, your claims. You need to have strong arguments, because you look things, from multiple perspective. Remember, we talk about holistic uh, view. So from different angle, you have to look at it. The way you present this differently. So you have to be competent in your writing skills. And then you must be willing to participate in a form of social and human science research that does not have firm guidelines or specific procedures and is evolving and constantly changing. In other words, most of the time, even though you are doing a formal research, okay, that research could be your PhD work or master research project, or probably a funded research. Okay, it's a formal research project, but when it comes to doing the research, it has to be very informal, especially when it comes to collecting the data, immersing with the people, observing the people in the work setting, and then talking with them in a language that is easily understandable by them, not a very formal language. Sometimes you have to use, their mother tongue. Okay, if the person whom you are interviewing could only understand certain language, say Javanese, probably you have to use that Javanese language in interviewing them. If you yourself is not capable in that language, you may need to have an interpreter with you to do the interviewing. So if you are willing to participate, in this kind of research, then you are qualified to become a qualitative researcher. All right, so I've mentioned these 5 types of qualitative inquiry or qualitative research methodology. Number 1 is narrative research. Number 2, phenomenology. Number 3, grounded theory. Number 4, ethnography. And number 5, case study. Okay, let's go one by one. The first one, narrative research. The focus of narrative research is to explore the life of an individual. So this particular individual is not an ordinary individual. Okay, must be somebody that is very significant. Example, he could be the prime minister of a country. He could be like a Nobel Prize winner. Okay, somebody who is very prominent, very well known, and he has contributed a lot to the country, to the nation, or to any discipline of the academic. Okay, so you want to study the life of this particular individual. And the type or problem best suited for design, needing to tell stories of individual experiences. So we want to tell the stories. Okay, it's like an biography. Biography. And then drawing from the humanities, including anthropology, literature, history, psychology, and sociology. This is the root of this narrative research. And you can study one person. The unit of analysis can be one person or several individuals, in a team. Okay, example, you want to study the cabinet minister, okay, during the reign of, say, certain government. Okay, you want to study all these ministers in the cabinet ministers, in that particular government. Okay, that is narrative research. The second one, phenomenology. Okay, phenomenology comes from the word phenomenon. Okay, so you want to study the essence of the experience, of a phenomenon. Okay, the essence of the experience. So this phenomenon must be something that is quite impactful, very significant phenomenon, not ordinary or regular phenomenon, something that is very significant and very impactful to big audiences. Okay, the type of problem, needing to describe the essence of the life phenomenon. Okay, life phenomenon. Drawing the root, coming from philosophy, psychology, and education. Okay, example, remember in 2004 there was a very huge earthquake, and which triggered the tsunami, and the tsunami had caused many death in the certain part of Indonesia, India, and several countries as well. So these people who survived that tragedy, how do they live their life after this incident? So you may want to understand, the experience of these people, surviving after this impactful tragedy. So you want to describe their stories. Okay, so the unit of analysis studying several individuals that shared the same experiences. Okay, the next type of research in qualitative is grounded theory. So developing a theory grounded in data from the field. So this type of study is not driven by any sorry, you cannot use any lens, you cannot use any theory as a lens. So you start off with your problem statement, your research questions, research objective, and that's it. So no framework, nothing, because the essence of this grounded theory is that there isn't any theory, model or framework that can um, represent the phenomenon. Okay, so whatever theory that are available are not fit, okay, not suitable at all to reflect or represent the phenomenon. So on that basis you conduct a study to develop a theory. Okay, so this grounded theory research is rooted from the sociology, and the unit of analysis can be process. You want to study process. Example, in information system development, those was pursuing information system, when we develop system, there is a process. Remember that SDLC, system development life cycle. So that whole process can be unit of analysis. It can be the action, the doing, like knowledge transfer, for example, or interaction involving many individuals. Okay, the next one is ethnography. Ethnography comes from the word ethnic, okay, race, okay. So describing and interpreting culture sharing group, okay, people sharing similar culture. Okay, of course people will be sharing similar culture when they come from similar ethnic group, right? So we want to describe and interpret the shared pattern of culture of a group. So this ethnography study is rooted from the anthropology and sociology field or discipline. The unit of analysis for ethnography, studying a group that shares the same culture. Okay, example, you want to study all these wrestlers, okay, from a state of Dagestan in Russia. If you are familiar with Khabib Nurmagomedov, okay, this is a very uh, popular wrestler, boxer, uh, uh, in wrestling, right? So he came from this place called Dagestan, and people over there mainly they are heavily involved in these wrestling sports. Okay, so you want to study, their way of life, their culture. So you can do that using this ethnography approach. And actually, in the context of information science, it is still possible to study ethnography. Example, you want to study the culture of librarians working in academic library in Malaysia. How is their work culture? Is it different between the public universities and also private universities, or their culture are similar or comparable? Okay, so because they share the same value, same culture, same working environment, or probably different, so you can adopt the ethnography approach. Okay, the last one, the fifth one, is case study. Case study develop an in-depth description and analysis of a case or multiple case. So you want to study specific case or several cases, multiple cases, certain cases. Okay, example, this case can be action doing. Example, knowledge sharing, or innovative work behavior, or systems maintenance practice. That can be a case. System maintenance practice can be a case. So the type of problem best suited for such for design of case study is to provide an in-depth understanding of a case or cases. So this case study research is rooted from the psychology, law, political science, and medicines. And the unit of analysis for a case study, it can be an event, a program, activity, or it can be people, individual, or even group. Okay, how do we collect data? Okay, normally all these all these five types of qualitative research will employ three same method of collecting data. The first one, of course, the interview. You will collect data using interview, and this interview can be one-to-one or one-to-many. Okay, you can interview in a group, and then you can also do focus group. Okay, but normally for grounded theory is not very suitable uh, for 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 doing focus group, but for phenomenology is quite suitable to use focus group when your unit of analysis involving group. Otherwise, face-to-face interview is very uh, appropriate, and document review. And sometimes artifacts means object that are being used, applied, by these people or by this group. Okay, so these three method of data collection techniques are rigorously used across all the five different types of qualitative research: interview, okay, document review, okay, and then focus group. Okay, very dominant. Okay, all right. I mean, all these three will be used across these five qualitative research. The data analysis, okay, uh, across these five, basically you will do a similar technique for analyzing the data. Is this that the term used sometimes different? Like in grounded theory, for example, the term used here are data. We have this open coding, we have this axial coding, and selective coding. Open coding is where you have the transcription, and then you read through several times and then identify what is the suitable code for that particular phrases. Okay, and then after you have code that phrases, you will connect that phrases, and that will become axial coding. And then this axial coding, you will combine and form a theme or category that is called selective coding. Okay, so if you look across other uh, uh, qualitative research, the same approach is being used also, but the terminology probably different. Okay, you have this type of analysis called thematic analysis, content analysis, but the essence of this analysis is almost similar, but the terms differ. Okay, you will have to deal with a huge amount of data in the form of transcription, your interview transcription, huge amount, and then you have to analyze carefully, slowly, patiently. Okay, and then the written report, develop a narrative about the stories. That is for narrative research. Whereas for phenomenology, you will describe the essence of the experience of the phenomenon. Grounded theory, you will generate a theory, develop a theory, in a figure presentation that shows, okay, this is the theory that represents the phenomenon. Ethnography describe how a culture sharing group works. Okay, and then finally, case study, develop detailed analysis of the case or more cases. The reporting structure for each and every type of the research differ. For narrative, we have the introduction, the research procedures, reports of stories, individuals theorize about their lives, narrative segment identified, patterns of meaning identified, event, processes, okay, themes, and then summary. This is based on this is adapted from the work of Danzig. Okay, that's how you provide the flow for the narrative research. We have the introduction, the research procedures, the report or stories, and then individualize, theorize about their lives, narrative segments identified, the themes, the category, patterns of meanings identifying. Okay, the patterns. Okay, we try to connect all the patterns. Okay, as for the phenomenology, same, you have the introduction, you have the research procedures, okay, and then the research procedures will entail all the assumption, the data collection, the analysis, the outcome, and then the significant statements, the meanings of the statements. Significant statements is the selective statements that you pick up from the data that you analyze, and then the themes of meaning, and then exhaustive description of the phenomenon. This is the template adapted from Mustaka's grounded theory, adapted from Strauss and Corbin. You have the introduction, the research procedures, and then the open coding, axial coding, selective coding, and then discussion about theory that you develop. Ethnography, same, you have the introduction, the research procedure, and then the description about the culture, analysis of cultural themes, interpretation, lesson learned, and questions raised. Case study, the entry vignette. I have problems in pronouncing that words. Introduction, and then the description, the development of issue, detail about selective issues, assertion, and then closing closing the stories. Okay, the case study. Okay, so if you compare across these 5 different qualitative research, you can see item number 1 and 2 are almost consistent. They are almost the same. Okay, you have the introduction, you have the research procedures. Okay, the rest are actually more or less the same. It's just that the naming, the terminology used differ. Okay, but if you look this in terms of if you look and compare against the general structure of a thesis, it's very similar. Okay, you have the introduction, chapter 1, and then the research procedure will be the research methodology, and then reports of stories, okay, will be your findings, okay, and then your discussions. Okay, they are more or less the same. Okay, let's look at the detail for each and every component. The problem statement will be the intent of a research problem in qualitative research. Basically, this is about why you want to do the study. Okay, you describe the reason, the why you want to embark on this study. So the problem statement can be written following these 9 element. First, you provide the general problem, okay, and then you try to narrow down into the specific problem. You move on by providing the introductory words, introductory word describing the paradigm, okay. Of course, in this context is the qualitative, and then you mention the general population that are being affected by the problem, and then the geographic area where the problem exists, the context basically. The gap in the literature, you explain what is not being done so far, which actually provide research opportunity for you. And then the problem statement. Shifa, go down, I'll be at the class. The problem statement, and then sufficient evidence in providing the convince that the reader that the problem is real and solvable, and then the problem statement is clear, concise, and in accord with the purpose statements. Okay, the purpose statement identifies the specific qualitative approach used in the study by mentioning the type. Out of the five, which one you are going to choose? Encode the passages. Encode the passage with the words that indicate the type of research. I'll show you after this. Okay, identifies the central phenomenon, and then foreshadow the participant and the site for the study. Okay, like this is the template that you can try to adopt and try to adapt from here. The purpose of this, so you can see five. Okay, choose one. Study is to understand or describe or develop or discover, and then you state the central phenomenon, the participant, the context. Okay, so on and so forth. So these are the words that you can use to encode in the purpose statement. Now, if it is narrative, so try to use the word narrative study, stories, epiphanies, life experiences, chronology. If it is phenomenology, use the word phenomenology, describe experiences, meaning, essence. If it is grounded theory, use the word grounded theory, generate, develop, proposition, process, substantive theory. Ethnography, use the word ethnography, culture, sharing group, cultural, behavior and language, cultural portrait, cultural themes. If it is case study, use the word case study, bounded, single or collective case, event, process, program, individual. Okay, so you can pick from this template and include in your purpose statement. The research questions. Central research questions is followed by several sub-questions. Okay, first we have the main research questions, and then you can have sub-research questions. For example, this one. What was the campus response to the gunman incident at the Midwestern University? So that is the central research questions. And then you have got the sub-questions. What happened? Who was involved? What themes or response emerged? What theoretical construct helped us to understand? What constructs were unique to this case? Okay. Another example. That one is actually sub questions. This one, okay, procedural sub questions. How might the campus case and events following the incidents be described? Okay, description. What themes emerge from gathering information from the case? Analysis of the case material. Okay, how would I interpret these themes within larger social and psychological theories? Okay, I have already mentioned we are going to use interviews, observation, documents, and artifact reviews. We will have a special chapter on this data collection technique, but for the time being, we just describe that the data collection technique for qualitative research can be interviews, observation, or document and artifact reviews. Okay, so data collection is actually very iterative with the data analysis. Okay, so you locate the site or individual. Okay, make sure it is done ethically. You are given permission to get access. You have to contact the gatekeeper or whomsoever is appropriate. Get the permission from the authority. And then normally for any qualitative research, you will be using purposive sampling, and then you collect data using the three techniques. Okay, combination of the three techniques, and then you record the data that you collect, analyze the data, okay, resolve field issues, anything that issues arising from your data collection, store the data, okay, store the data in an appropriate format for you to later on analyze. Okay, data collection activities. Okay, what is traditionally studied? Okay, single individual in narrative, phenomenology, multiple individuals, grounded theory, multiple individuals, ethnography, members of a certain ethnic, certain group. Case, a bounded system such as process, activity, event. So there must be you have to define the scope, the boundary of the case. If you define this is the case, so there must be a clear boundary definition. What constitute or considered within the boundary, that is the case. What are the typical access and rapport ratios? Normally across these five is always about getting access. So you have to make sure that it is done ethically. You have to contact the appropriate person. But when it comes to narrative, that will be individual, because sometimes in narrative you study individual. So the person is willing to commit, with you, in your data collection, because your data collection is not like one day interview and then it's done. It's not like that. It's going to be iterative, repetitive. Okay. Okay, what types of documents? You will collect whatever documents that are available, provided by them. Okay. So according to this Paul Kinghorn, it is appropriate to interview 5 to 25 people for phenomenology, but to me it's all depends. Uh, uh, this number uh, is just a guideline only. It all depends. As long as you are satisfied that you have collected in-depth data or saturated data, probably you can stop at 6, 7. Okay, depend. Grounded theory 20 to 30. Ethnography, participant observation, interviews, artifacts, document, case study, all documents you collect, interview, focus group also possible. Okay, how is information recorded? Okay, you can, nowadays we have got a lot of gadgets. You can just record the conversation easily. You can even record the video of your interview. Okay, and then sometimes you are not allowed to video record or tape record, then you have to take your field notes. Okay, so it depends. What are common data collection issue? Okay, normally access to the places which is considered sensitive, because probably it may violate privacy issues, security issues. Okay, how is information typically stored? Okay, you nowadays we have got a lot of technology. We have got this uh, external hard drive. You have also uh, cloud storage. You can use all these facilities to store your data. Okay, so I have completed discussing all the 5 different types of research, qualitative research. Okay, to summarize 5 of them, we have narrative, and then phenomenology, grounded theory, ethnography, and case study. So as for your assignment, I want you to search for a research article, 5 research article. Each one will use each and every different qualitative research method. Okay, uh, that I have discussed above. Okay, I'll see you in my meeting, in my face-to-face meeting. Okay, thank you for your attention.